So, no doubt one of the things that you will have been seeing probably for the past week is that we have been betrayed. But this is nothing but a myth. And we've discussed this before, that when Brexit failed, and we always said it would, the people on the right and the hard Brexiteers will be claiming betrayal. We've already said the reason why Theresa May was made Prime Minister was it was a poisoned chalice, because no one else wanted to be in charge, and that she could take the blame for this, and that they could get away with scot-free. So this comes from Jonathan Freeland in The Guardian, and it's "Beware the Great Betrayal Myth. This debacle is the work of hard Brexiteers. There is no deadlier horse in the kingdom than the deal brokered by Theresa May, flogged and again until it expired for a third time at 2:42 p.m. on the floor of the House of Commons. Something else lay dead alongside it. The illusion that the objection of MPs was not the precise terms of Britain's proposed exit from the European Union contained in the withdrawal agreement, but rather to the sketched version of our future relationship with the EU, the so-called political declaration. That found throughout was also bludgeoned to death, for MPs had the chance to vote on the withdrawal agreement alone. They rejected it by 340 votes to 286. Now we face a new cliff edge, with 11 p.m. on the 12th of April and the new day of destiny. At that hour, Britain will crash out of the EU with no deal, a scenario those charged with stewarding our economy, our industry and our safety warn will be the most catastrophic. The only way to avoid this fate is for MPs to agree on something else, and fast. And once they have, to impose their will on a reluctant Prime Minister that is harder than it sounds. Even if somehow they pull it off, MPs will have to seek an extension from the increasingly exasperated 27 countries of the EU that we're leaving behind. The mood in the EU, of those EU capitals, is hardening, as the Brexit saga has drained the residual goodwill towards the UK. They've had enough, and they just want us out, says one well-placed source, and they will be meeting of those EU heads at a government on the 10th of April. It's probably best not to assume that their patience with Britain will be ongoing nervousness breakdown will be infinite. Since few thought today's vote could be won, what was the point of it? Given that May was in charge, we should not be surprised by the answer. It was the same as ever as it was, a pitiful a pursuit of a partisan advantage rather than national interest. This was a stunt, a preemptive move in the blame game, so that if and when May announced a long delay to Brexit and the UK's participation in the European elections that come with it, that she can cast both as the fault of Labour. It was Labour and its Remainer allies who thwarted Brexit, she'll say, contrasting them with Tory MPs who were ready to sow their reservations and vote to ensure the will of the people was done. If May fears that too many Leave voters will regard a Brexit delay as a crime, today's vote was about planting an alibi and farming an alternative suspect. Of course, blaming Labour and the opposition parties for frustrating Brexit is laughably unjust. Whether you're talking about today or the last nearly 3 years, it may seem a minor injustice, but it matters more than the usual partisan bickering, for this blame game will extend far beyond Westminster. It will be a culture war, turning on the accusation at the heart of all culture wars, betrayal. The outlines of this myth have already been placed. Its victim is a noble people who voted as one on a summer's day in 2016 for a simple and clear desire: leave. But who were thwarted by a feckless and self-serving MPs, by the political class, by the liberal elite, by the BBC, by the universities, by the Brussels bureaucracies, by the corporations, by the Germans, by the hidden forces of darkness who together conspired against the hard-working men and women of this country. That's the stab in the back myth that will be fostered and lovingly nurtured. Like all grievances, it will spread and mutate and poison our politics for so many years to come. So it's vital to do what we can. So it's vital to do what can be done now to tackle it, to prevent it taking root and becoming immovable. Start with today. Many of those MPs who voted no did so for the entirely legitimate reason that they were being asked to write a blank cheque to endorse the withdrawal agreement shorn of the political declaration to which it had always been attached. But it was not just an old blank cheque either. Now that May has announced her intention to quit Downing Street, it was a cheque that could have been cashed by Dominic Raab or Boris Johnson, or, as yet May, undetermined future Tory Prime Minister. That new MP could have happily banked the terms of exit, free thereafter to set their own destination, aiming blithely for a Canada, Singapore or a Cayman Islands. The only leverage MPs have ever had over the direction of Brexit is their right to veto over the withdrawal agreement. So Labour cannot be blamed for blocking a blindfold Brexit, but it is the greater dishonesty here, one which May wasted no time in advocating as soon as the vote was done, that somehow Remainers have long been culpable for the UK's failure to leave the EU today. As scheduled, the blame for that failure does not belong with those who opposed Brexit. On the contrary, those who were supposedly its greatest champions. Just look at the just look through the list of names at those who defeated the first two meaningful votes. You won't find arch Remainer Ken Clarke in there. Instead, it's Johnson, Raab, Jacob Rees-Mogg and his comically misnamed European Research Group. It doesn't want to be European, does no research, and is too divided to count as a group, along with the Democratic Unionist Party. The ERG has been the stone in May's shoe from the beginning, preventing her from reaching the Brexit they all promised in 2016, namely the one that was stable, agreed and orderly. The hardcore Leavers claim that it is a principle that prevented them from backing the agreement. This was Brexit in name only, they said. It was vassalage. It was slavery. It would take a very Moses to break its chains. But then, the moment May dangled the prize of her own job, should they switch sides? Well, suddenly, slavery and vassalage didn't look so bad. It was proof, not that it were needed, that for many of the key players that remains, what it was from the start. A Tory parlour game driven by personal ambition. It's been bad enough watching May put party before country. It's worse to watch Johnson, backed by his acolytes, to put himself before both. Still, their guilt dates back earlier. It was partly thanks to their pressure that May made a series of fateful mistakes that led to this moment. The premature triggering of Article 50, her painting of the reddest of red lines, and the dismissal of the 48% as if only the 52% were truly the people, whose will had to be obeyed. The countless attempts to win support of the ERG crowd rather than attempt to craft a softer Brexit that might have attracted a consensus in Parliament. Those errors belong to May or to the Brexiteers who cornered her is for one of historians. But one thing is clear: none of these mistakes can be blamed on Remainers. This then is the battle to come. Should Brexit be softened into a Norwegian shape or become subject to a second referendum? And note that both options are jeopardised by their warning advocates now that taking lumps out of each other. That are now taking lumps out of each other. There we go. According to a shadow cabinet minister, then the Brexiteers will need someone to blame. Their list of suspects will be long, but they should be told loudly and immediately that the fault is not of their opponents, nor even in their stars, but in themselves. And this is what we've been saying for the longest time. Brexiteers have been refusing point blankly to take any responsibility for Brexit. There has been not a single admission of, well, we did this wrong. Even as things have gone terribly wrong and the car has crashed, the train has come off the tracks, but the driver, the Brexiteers, have refused to take responsibility. And they are the ones who have put us in this mess. They are the ones who have made us a national laughingstock on the world stage. They are the ones who were crying about, won't Norway be such a good idea? Won't, we would never leave the single market, and are now hounding to leave a no deal which, by the government's own words, would be absolutely catastrophic. So, don't blame Remainers for this mess. Blame the people who were in charge. Blame the Jacob Rees-Moggs. Blame the Boris Johnsons. Because they are the ones who are at fault here.